Alright, today I'm going to go over a quick way to set up a warrior for tanking in dungeons as soon as you hit 50. A lot of people don't really know what abilities they should be using, they kind of bounce around, but this is just kind of a quick guide that you can use that should make tanking dungeons pretty easy, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. Just for gear, some of this gear you won't have because it's from like GA, it's from the first Rage and Archives. But we're just going to talk about like the rune choices. Here you can see that there are different ones that say armor, tech, and grit. The grit ones aren't super necessary. I just like them to hit different milestones, and those have obviously changed as I've gotten different gear. But the armor one, armor, which we will look here, armor reduces each one of these resistances, physical, technology, and magic. So runing for it actually works really well with one of the amps that I'll talk about here in a second. The reason I also have tech in there is because with these milestones, each one you get strike through, and because of just these alone, I'm not ruined for strike through whatsoever. It allows me to get to 11% strike through. And strike through is important so that you don't get deflected that often, which means that you also have more threat per second. So with that covered real quick, we'll swap over to our abilities. Here I'll kind of go over these real quick. So we have Menacing Strike tier 8, it increases deflect chance, you'll be taking less damage, and then the tier 8 increases health, which can be really nice during a dungeon run. It helps cover a lot of gaps that undergeared healers might not be able to fill, and like it allows for really unique instances, like say on the first boss in Storm Talon, you can actually solo it if everyone dies at some point in time, because that heal will be enough to keep you up, and then you'll also gain shields from deflecting over time and not taking damage. So it's really nice to have. It's your bread and butter for building up your kinetic energy, keeping it up so that you get those the amps that I'll talk about here in a second up the whole time. Solid ability, always choose it. Jolt I have tiered up here. It gives you some range to actually hit people, especially if you're walking up to pull groups. You can use it to actually initiate on them, and then as you get right on top of them, you can start using Menacing Strike and Shield Burst. It also builds up KE for you as well. And then the tier 4 is really nice because it reduces resistances. Reducing resistances increases your threat per second, on top of also increasing the damage of anyone who's in your group. So it could be spell singers or espers who are doing magic or technology damage, whichever, or warriors and engineers or stalkers who might be doing physical damage. Overall, really strong ability. Oh, medics as well, doing technology damage, I believe, or magic. So resistances reductions, super nice. It'll make the dungeon a little bit faster. Atomic Surge, Intimidate, makes it really nice for if you're getting outgeared by maybe DS, Data Escape people coming in, doing tons of damage. You need to be on top of the threat, not just put up there momentarily, which is what a taunt does compared to an Intimidate. It just puts you at the top and then you return back to where you were, whereas an Intimidate puts you at the top, leaves you there until the end of the duration, and then you have to manage on your own to maintain that position. We got Bum Rush here. Bum Rush is nice to get from A to B really quickly. Someone in a dungeon is almost always going to pull a mob that they shouldn't, and you might have to cover a gap to get there, so having Bum Rush gets you there faster. You're able to take the threat off of whoever might have pulled, and then you also have a damage reduction because your healer might have to also cover that gap that you just made. So having this gives your healer a little bit of buffer, and hopefully you don't freak out as much, but it lets you take reduced damage. You can pop your innate, which if you haven't learned by now, your innate reduces the damage you take, increases your total threat generation as well, so that's really nice. But popping those two things together will make it so that you're not going to take a whole lot of damage, and your healer can really catch up and get you taken care of. Shield Burst I have tier 7, I don't have it tiered 8 because I don't use in this build Bolstering Strike or Emergency Reserves, which is the bonus that comes through in the tier 8, but Shield Burst does a ton of threat, especially around you. Just really nice ability to use overall, and then it also deals additional damage for the tier 4 if you're above 25% shield. I'll show just the easy rotation that it is here in a second. We're going to go over the utility abilities first though. Tier 4 Kick reduces or destroys 2 interrupt armor, super strong during dungeons. It works really well in conjunction with grapple. Say there's a mob that's ranged, has 2 interrupt armor, you've got a pack coming by, you want to pull the next group so you guys are getting through more efficiently, so you're able to get those silver or gold runs through. So what you can do is you can interrupt, it'll use kick, it'll remove 2 of their interrupt armor, you can dodge back a couple times, use grapple, it'll pull the mob to you, and hopefully the pat won't be anywhere near. You guys can damage it down, get through the dungeon a little bit faster. And last I have here is Unstoppable Force. I like using this just because whenever you're running through a dungeon, there are different times where you're going to get tethered, you're going to get knocked down, you're going to just, something's going to happen, you might get disarmed. Using an unstoppable force either beforehand or after it happens will, you know, get you back into the fight a lot faster, or not take you out of the fight at all, depending on when you use it. You can supplement this out for something like defense grid. You could put in atomic spear if you wanted to for a little bit more threat pool. Plasma wall if you want to be a little bit more tanky. But overall, I think this has really good utility. Just to show, it's a super easy rotation. You get, that's Jolt's range. Everything else is melee, 7 yards in front of you. So you run in, cast Jolt, start doing your menacing strikes, shield burst, and that's it. Pretty simple stuff. Oh no, DS geared person pulled threat. Intimidate, you're at top for a little bit. You reapply the debuff from Jolt. There you go. Pretty easy stuff. Dodge back to get out of combat. Last, we're going to go over amps real quick. So the setup that I have here is just a bunch of stuff that works really well together. Amazing one is Fortify. Increases your armor by 12%. Ruining Forward obviously makes it an even stronger amp. You know, the more shield you have, the more tanky you're going to be. Warriors work really well with medics, but also because of another amp that we have here called Reserve Power, 20% of the incoming healing that you get goes to your shields instead, so it helps you stay at a higher level of Fortify, so that you're even tankier. Also, what we have here is Full Force. It increases the threat generation periodically throughout the fight. This is kind of nice so that if you have someone from DS or from GA who outgears you significantly, and they're pulling a ton of threat, this helps kind of close that gap, make it a little bit easier to manage your threat, and just overall make tanking a more pleasurable experience. We've got Connect Buffer, reduces damage taken by 9%, pretty self-explanatory. Reducing your full defense, which increases your deflect chance and deflect critical hit chance while above 500 kinetic energy by 5%. Again, it's just going to make you tankier. You know, if you're not taking crits from mobs, it's going to be a lot easier on your healer. So, super strong amp. Another one we have here is Vigor. Increases your incoming healing by 10%, and then also you gain stacks of Beacon, which is if an enemy hits you, you gain 2% increased healing. And so if you pull a bunch of mobs and all five, like say 5 hit you at once, you're instantly going to get 20% increased healing on top of the 10% that Vigor's base brings you. So that's 20% increased healing. That's 1/5 additional healing, which is super nice. And then we've got Kinetic Drive here. It's really nice if you're running around in a fight. Your KE won't go down, your kinetic energy won't go down while you're running around, and it also builds up, so it's easier to maintain. You stay tankier in the fight longer if you have to move around. Overall, just a really strong amp. And then lastly, we got Unyielding. Unyielding's nice because if you do have to run a mobs from one spot to another, or even say you're kiting, just because sometimes that's the challenge in a fight. People are dying and your healer isn't by you because they're covering them. If you need to kite a little bit, you can do this, and if they hit you, it won't slow you down. But yeah, for right now, I figure that's a pretty good guide, just to get you started in dungeons. It's pretty simple stuff. Not a whole, it's got a ton of utility. Warriors in general, utility gods. So yeah, just play around with things, see what really works for you. But hopefully, this is a good starting point. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them below, or if you want to, you can message me in game. My name is Lalta Surreal. I'm on Entity, which is the North American PvE server. So yeah, hopefully this helps you out and get to tanking dungeons.